Shabbat Shalom once again, brothers and sisters. At this time, we get to hear from the great Kohan, Hizkiah Hawkins.
Praise Yahweh. Shabbat Shalom, brethren. You may be seated. I can't tell you what a privilege and an honor it is to be allowed to come before you. The House of Yahweh is the only place I ever want to be. This is it. This is the greatest place on earth, and I'm so blessed to be allowed to be here. All of us are. All of us truly are. I would like every one of you, from the little baby on mom's knee to the oldest man that's in here, to please pay attention. The title of my sermon this morning is Yoki 24-Hour Manual for All Children. And I want to draw the point that we are all Yahweh's children. I want to start off, before I get into that, with some things I've asked some people to get off the internet. And I just want you to know the disgusting, evil, sick, perverted mess that is surrounding us in the world. And to bring to our mind how blessed we are to be here and get the tremendous spiritual food that we're getting. Because it's necessary. Brethren, this righteousness we're being taught by Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins is keeping us out of these things. Wait till you hear this. Okay, one of the things, the health-related cost of intimate partner violence exceeds $5.8 billion each year. Husband and wife violence, $5.8 billion to get this stuff resolved and go into courts. Of that amount, nearly $4.1 billion are for direct medical and mental health care services, and nearly $1.8 billion are for the indirect costs of lost productivity or wages. Billions of dollars that is costing everyone because of the evil ways. They're not selecting Father Yahweh's ways. They don't know about them yet, the people that are suffering this. Okay, here we say approximately 1 in 5 female high school students reports being physically and or sexually abused by a dating partner. 1 in 5. You know how many millions are out there? 1 in 5. Okay, here we go. Domestic violence in children. In a national survey of American families, 50% of the men who frequently assaulted their wives also frequently abused their children. 50%. What a terrible, evil environment. And those children being raised in that. And it's going to be your and my job to straighten it out. So please listen this morning and let me help you as I've been crying out to Yahweh. Please help me to be able to bring this across, Father, because I truly believe this is one of the most important things that we've got to deal with. You and I, we're suffering and struggling. What about the children? They are the future of this whole nation. They're the future of this whole world. So praise Yahweh. It's incredible. And what you and I need to do is going to make the big difference in their lives. Okay, one other. Study suggests that between 3.3 to 10 million children witness some form of domestic violence annually. 10 million children have got to see domestic violence? Sick, terrible, evil. Another one in here. Family violence. More than 1 in 3 women and more than 1 in 4 men in the United States have experienced rape, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. 1,551,143 incidents of family violence were reported between 1996 and 2001. 1,500,000. These numbers are fantastic, but from the time that Satan got a hold of the world in their mind, it's been going this direction. It's been going down, down, down. Parent abuse on the rise, a historical review, and it talks about 9 to 33% of parents report being abused by their children. Being abused by their children, ranging in age from 10 to 23. This is an unexpected considering the fact that child abuse, which has a much higher profile, only had a frequency percentage of 12.4 in 2001. 95% of mothers report being hit by their children under age 5. Brethren, where is this sick, disgusting cesspool of a society going? It's horrible. It's evil. So I want to talk to you this morning about the Yoki 24 Manual. And it is for all children, and you and I, brethren, are children. We usually think about children as being very young, the little babies and everything. When they get to be 21, they become adults. But the scriptures really tell us all about Yahweh's children, and you and I are Yahweh's children. First, I want to tell you this, though. Praise Yahweh, we are Yahweh's children. Let's really applaud that. You don't want to be Satan's child, believe me. That sick, evil, wicked society. Okay, I just want to go over something in Strong's Concordance, the Hebrew dictionary here. Under the word children, word number 1121, ben, means child of either gender, male or female. Word number 2138, zakar, means male, men, children. Word 2945, tap, T-A-P, means children. Women and children, also families. Word number 3206, yaled, means a male child and ranges from infant to young adult. Men, boys. Word 3207, yalda, female child, young girl, refers to a wide range of ages from infant to young adult. Word number 1121, again, ben, as used in Exodus 31:16, which says, therefore the children of Israel, that is the nation of Israel, that's all men, women, children, all, shall keep the Sabbath throughout their generations as a perpetual covenant. And verse 17 says, it is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. And children of Yahweh right here, all of us, this is what we're doing. We're observing the Sabbath. We're following this. Okay, Father Yahweh considers all of us, each and every one of us, that we are, regardless of age, we are Yahweh's very own children. So when it says children, and it does apply to every single one of us, whether a baby or a grown-up. And that's why in this beautiful 24-hour manual, okay, we all know about this. We all know about this manual. Sure, we know about it. But one of the things that I want to bring out, and I know time always goes by so fast, but the important thing is, mothers, fathers, men, women, do we just take this manual, oh, it's the 24-hour manual for all children. Here, son, here, daughter, and then they go and read it and study it. That's for them. No, wrong, mom and dad. That's for all of us. We are all Yahweh's children. We are all Yahweh's children. So it's with this thought in mind that I'd like to draw your attention to one of the most incredible booklets, and this is that booklet, the 24-hour manual. And the cover says, Oki 24-hour, when you rise up, when you lie down. It's a manual for all children. And on page 3, coming right from the author, right from the one that wrote this, my dream, it seems like for 100 years now I've had this dream where our sons and daughters could experience what the prophet Ilya once had, a 24-hour program where the children were constantly trained from the time they rose up to the time they went to bed and even throughout the night. Now, everybody's not in a position where you can have a school where you can put these children up and everything. 24 hours, mom and dad, in your house, in your home. You see them when they come home. You see them when you come home. This is the time that we need to be telling them and teaching them these things and going over it with them. Don't just put them out there by themselves. That's not what this book was written for. It's written for all of us. So he says, Pastor says, I see the benefit this will do for our sons and daughters to help turn their hearts away from the world of lustful pulls which so many fall into. So many fall into. And then it says, instead, it will draw them to recognizing Yahweh and their Father as their Father and His laws as a very dear friend. Father Yahweh is a very dear friend to all of us, and we are, every one of us, His children. Brethren, out of 7 billion people in the world, 7 billion people, you and I were chosen to be taught this and to teach it to others. Out of 7 billion people. Father Yahweh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this blessing. And brethren, I just think this book has been in existence for a while, and we have not been as diligent as we need in studying it ourselves and then presenting it to our children. So what an awesome, incredible blessing it is to have this. And are we doing all that we can individually and collectively to teach it? What are we doing to help our children? What are we doing? And to help our children to know and understand, Yahweh really is our Father. He truly, really is. And we have so much proof that Yisrayl Hawkins is the one that was sent. He truly is. Sent by the only source of power in the universe. There's no denying it. It's been proven to us again and again. And the greatest man on the face of the earth is teaching us this. I say the greatest man because he is the most righteous out of any man that I know. And in 1 Yochanan 3:4, it says, whoever commits sin transgresses also the laws, for sin is a transgression of the laws. And in verse 7 it says, little children, let no man deceive you. He who practices righteousness is righteous, just as he is righteous. And of course, Yahshua Messiah, a righteous man, was trained and taught by Father Yahweh to take that position. Pastor is also being trained by Father Yahweh. So this verse, brethren, tells us right here, do not listen to any of this world's religions. Remember, Satan has deceived the whole world, Revelation 12:9. But as we just read in 1 Yochanan 3:7, let no man deceive you, that is those who are deceived by Satan. Then that verse says, he who practices righteousness is righteous. And that he today is Yisrayl Abel Hawkins. That's the one. Our leader, the one that our overseer, our spiritual leader, our pastor. And for the past 18 years, brethren, I have been here and I have witnessed this practicing of righteousness by Yisrayl Abel Hawkins. And righteousness by him, that's the reason I'm here today. Because I didn't see the phoniness in the worldly religions in this house. It's not here. It's only true righteousness, and it's not only spoken and taught, it is practiced. It is practiced by our overseer and pastor. He pours his life right into it, everything. Don't you think that he'd love to be able to be more relaxed, lay in a hammock, go fishing? Forget about it. He let all of that go, all of it, for you and for me and for our children. All of it has been given to this house and to this work. He just is the most fantastic and greatest man on the face of the earth. And unless we really respect him, if you believe in Yahweh, how can you not believe in the one he sent here? He is an incredible example to us. And that's one of the things that you and I got to watch out for. Because, brethren, what are we doing? The 24-hour manual, you just give it to a child and say, go ahead and read it. Go ahead, you take care of that, go in your room or whatever. No, you need to read and study it so you can answer the questions too. You need to be right on top of it, like everyone in this house needs to be able to talk to children. And what is the biggest thing? Okay, you're not allowed to talk to some children. So how are you going to uphold this 24-hour manual? It's for all children. That's right. Guess what? It's your example. It's your example. It's your words and your actions. That's what these children are watching. And this is really incredible. So right here, this 24-hour manual written by the man that practices righteousness, always does, he tells us what is needed to do, and this is how to go about it in this 24-hour manual. He says that we can train our children so that we can bring to pass what the prophet Yael prophesied about, and in Yael 2:28, and it will come to pass afterward, I'll pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters will prophesy. You, brethren, you and I, our sons and daughters will prophesy. The old men, maybe like me, will dream dreams. I've had a couple of those, some really great ones. Your young men will see visions. And Pastor says, let's all be faithful in doing our part in fulfilling this wonderful prophecy involving us and our sons and daughters for these last days. Right from the words, from the mouth of that one that was sent here to guide and lead and direct us and to help us. When Pastor says, let's all, it does mean all of us, every man, woman, and child, participating in the 24-hour manual program. And to them and their families. And we have to teach what they're learning from this awesome manual. The children are teaching. You just saw some get up here this morning. How incredible. You see children in the world being able to do what these boys are doing? No way. It's here in the House of Yahweh. They're being taught from birth right on up. And I've got a lot of respect for them. I've got a lot of respect for them. Do they still have their difficulties because at certain ages? Listen, I remember when I was 12 and 13, oh boy. Man, I still think about the things that I did wrong there, and I know. So now when I'm dealing with some of these children, I'm realizing, and I hope I'll have enough time to get into that, because I did have something that I wanted to bring about that. It's something kind of personal for me, but I'll tell you what, ask some of these kahans, if it's going to help somebody, I'll tell them anything about me. I'll tell them whatever it needs to be, because I want to help people. That's what we need to be here for, to serve, to serve everybody. And it don't always think about me. We're not opera singers. Me. All that stuff is in the world. That's that crazy nonsense. What we want to do is think about other people. Put them before us. Okay, so if everyone is using the same rules, the same standards, then there won't be any difference in the rewards or the corrections. If we're all on the same page and we're all treating it the same way. But no, if you don't get into this, well then, Mom, you corrected the child this way. Dad, you let the child get away totally without being corrected. All these things in here say not to do it that way, but to follow what's in this book. And I hope I have time to get into some of these things, but I do have something personal that I want to bring out to you because I think it will help you to understand. And am I embarrassed? No, I'm not. Because I'm a human being, I'm a man in Yahweh's house, and whatever I do, I want it to be acceptable to Father Yahweh. I want it to be acceptable to this house. I want Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins to never be ashamed or embarrassed that I'm one of his sons. I want to be one of his sons forever. Okay, so in the house, being in the house of Yahweh, we have been taught how important unity really is. And we know that when we're all in unity, things go better. They just do. Easier, less stress, more progress can be made. With these children, we're all saying the same thing. We're all telling them what they have to do, and it all matches. It's not a mishmash. What do children do? They pick a, let's see, he's stricter than that one. I want to be with this one today because he's not so strict. Well, I know I got a reputation around the boys here, as being Mr. Strict. But I tell you, I do it for a reason, and I even tell them that. I tell them that I'm trying to help them, and I hope to be able to bring that out here in a minute on something personal, but to tell them what they're doing wrong. Okay, so let's see. It says, brethren, this book, the 24-hour manual, is not meant just for your children to study, but for you to study, for your children to study, but for you to study also logically, realistically. If you don't study it diligently, then just how can you be sure your children are correct in their studies of it? They said on page 6, I read this and that. Okay, well, what does that mean? You didn't read it. How do you know what they're talking about? They're wrong. You didn't go back and say, oh no, son, this is what this means. Oh no, daughter, this is what this is talking about. That's what we've got to do. This is the greatest training manual in the world, and it's going to make your life easier, mom and dad, and kahans and kahanas and deacons and deaconesses, to not have any children that are obstinate, that are rebellious, that are not wanting to do the right things. Okay, so the 24 manual is for all children. And the mom and dad, we are also children of Yahweh. And at the bottom of the cover, it says Deuteronomy 6:7. And I just want to read that scripture at the bottom of this. And here you are, Deuteronomy 6:7. You must teach them diligently to your children and talk about them when you sit in your house. That's talking about the laws. Well, talk to them. And when you walk on the road and when you lie down and when you rise up, you don't always have to have scriptures in your hand. You're telling them concepts. You're telling them righteousness is coming from this book because this is the greatest help. It has all kinds of things that it's telling us in here. It has the special directives, a 24-hour program. It has the rules, speaking rules, classroom, dining table, bathroom rules, bedroom rules. Hey, it's talking about their lives. And how do we orchestrate it? How do we direct them? How do we teach them the right things, the right way to go? Discipline, the rod of correction talks about. It talks about everything in here. Gestures and speech. The way children are allowed to speak and express themselves plays a big part in the level of respect they express to authorities and others. Mom, if you're letting them say sassy things to you at home, they're not going to come and tell a Kahan the same thing. They're not going to say that in front of Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins. Oh, yes, they will. It's your job. And Dad, it's your job to get them straightened out. And the big thing, what example are we setting for them? Do we have quirks? Do we say things that we shouldn't be saying? Do we do things that we shouldn't be doing in front of them? And I want to get into that a little bit here, and I want to tell you about something that has occurred. And this is personal in my own life. But my life is House of Yahweh's because this is the only place I want to be. So I want to tell you something. Praise Yahweh. Here, I had an incident where I had to go correct one of my grandsons, and he's just becoming a teenager. He's just in his early teen years. And he did something, and, hey, when I was his age, boy, he outshines me. He's a lot better off than I was as a young boy. I was a real bad boy. I lived in the New York City area, and a lot of that influence rubbed off. But I did have a great mother who taught me a lot of things. My father was an alcoholic. He was abusive. My mother was straight as an arrow, right to the point. And I showed her the Sabbath, and she started reading it and studying it, and she started working with me on how to stay out of trouble. And I was never involved in all this sexual sin out there in the world because my mother, I was 17 when my father died. My mother explained it to me. I'm just telling you. We say, I can't talk to him, my son. Whoever's got to talk to somebody to keep him from sinning, hey, man, go for it. Go for it. Do it. Okay, so anyway, I corrected my grandson. And you shouldn't do that. And look, if you keep on doing things that are wrong, grandson, then this is going to be a problem. And, you want to please Yahweh. You want to be in the kingdom. Well, guess what? Look in the mirror, Kahaniskia. My grandson came to me and he said, Grandpa, Dad's got a meter for diabetes. He said, you want to come over here and stick your finger? I said, oh, man, I took all that stuff. I threw it in a drawer. I got so tired of it. My hands look like a pincushion. And I was just tired of this. Stick it in the, oh, you can't eat that. No, okay, the numbers are right. You can eat this. I just started to get depressed. This has been 15 years I've been wrestling with this. And I'm just blessed to be alive, I'll tell you. But it's got some things, numb hands, numb feet. And I just hope the brain doesn't get numb, because that's, I need that to be here. So praise Yahweh for allowing me to be here. And I just want you to know that my grandson saw the readings of my blood sugar, and it was over 400, and they say coma. You can go into a coma at 400 and above. And so I just have to admit, I'm confessing, and I did confess to the priest, the kahans, that I did such a thing, and I'm embarrassed and ashamed of myself for doing it. But guess what? My grandson was going along telling me, Grandpa, you shouldn't eat that cake with icing on it. Oh, that's okay, son, I'll be all right. Grandpa, shouldn't you do this and have that, whatever? So I said, it's okay, whatever. Well, then I got down and I was praying for my grandson with some of his difficulties and problems. And Yahweh put in my mind, hey, Hizkiah, what about you? Your grandson is helping you to correct this. Praise Yahweh, he did. And my grandson, I'm telling you right now, he's the monitor. What salad dressing is on that that lettuce? Grandpa, can you have that? What's in that? I'm going to the cafeteria to get your lunch. Praise Yahweh. We're working with each other. But I just want to tell you, it comes from this. It comes from this. On page number, let me see if I can get it real quick. I'm running out of time. Always occurs. But it says here on page 6, the rod of correction, children's wrongdoing should never be ignored. I didn't ignore my grandson's wrongdoing. I corrected him about it. I corrected him. And so then what it says, let's see, over here on page number 4, here's the other side. The perfect example that you set will be a great teaching tool. Man, did I fail at. I failed it with him. The great teaching tool, I should have said, grandson, you're right. I shouldn't be eating that. I'm going to stop. Well, after praying and Father Yahweh opening my mind and helping me and healing me, I went to the boy, I went to the grandson, and I apologized. And I said, I'm sorry. And I really mean it. Because it's the wrong thing to do. Above and beyond diabetes and the food I need to eat, what was I teaching my grandson? It's okay to ignore what your correction you're getting. No, it is not. I'm telling you, that's, brethren, love this book. Love it. This is the way to help them. Don't ever put yourself or anybody else above what we're being taught here. And this book just goes on and all kinds of details. And it's wonderful. But mom, dad, get a copy. They're cheap. But let me tell you something. All of the deacons and all that are around here helping those children, marching them back and forth, we got this. This is that book, but it's put in a binder, and all the pages are bound in plastic so we don't wear them out. That's how much we're studying this book. We're not going to wear it out. And I got notes in here from those deacons about the very things in this book where the children are having problems. How else are we going to attack this? How else are we going to put Satan's garbage out of the way? I'm telling you, these books are very cheap. Go to the South office. Go order one. Go get one. One for you. One for each one of your children. Mothers, fathers, anybody, grandparents, everybody needs this book. I mean, even if you don't have any children, you need this book so you can see again and again how to conduct yourself, not to set the wrong example. And I can't be thankful enough to Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins, the greatest teacher in the world. He truly is. And look at this. I mean, the new prophetic word that we got, it's just beautiful, man. It's awesome. Coming from this man, I just want to tell you, I have never had a teacher in my whole life, 69 years, that has taught me like Yisrayl Hawkins has. He is the greatest. He really is. And you know what? It's not just his teaching and words. I see it. I've witnessed it. I have witnessed him for 18 years that I've been here doing the right thing. And it's just awesome. Learn to respect him. Learn to love him. Learn to do the things that he's teaching us. Why? That correction isn't easy to take. Even from my grandson. Oh, come on, leave me, let me have this donut or whatever. Yeah, boy. No, I made a mistake. I really did. And I apologize to him. And I just tell you, I'm sharing this with you because I see how easily it is to negate and go against correction. for the right reason. All the correction in the house of Yahweh is to help us get in the kingdom. Oh, what, you don't want to be there? You'd rather have these problems? No, you wouldn't. We got to do it right. So I'm just telling you, brethren, get a copy of this book, the greatest book that's going to help you and your family, and you study it. Don't just be a teacher telling your children, go read it and whatever. You get into it. You go after each page and you see the things. And then, because what that's going to tell you, wait a minute, you're not living up to this, son. And then you have a conversation with him. You go into the scriptures. You come and see your counselors. You tell a boy to come see us kahans, us counselors. And we get things straightened out so that every single person in this room and eventually in the world, all those that will, are going to come to perfection, are going to listen to Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins through Yahshua Messiah, through Yahweh, the greatest. I mean, he is the only source of power in the universe. And we're the only ones out of 7 billion people that know it and are allowed to be here. Brethren, let's be thankful, and let's use the materials that Pastor has made for us, inspired by Yahweh, so that we can do the better job and that we can really help. Reach out and help others. Oh, you don't have time, you're tired? Hey, guess what? I'll show you my time ticket, you know. I didn't know what tired was till I came to the house of Yahweh. You can be real busy. So praise Yahweh. And everybody, I know that these things are so important because we are so overwhelmed by the world and all the things that the world is having us do, and the examples out there. I mean, look at even the presidents and all these politicians. They're supposed to be those shining examples of, this is how this country needs to be run. If you did what they did, you'd be suffering the diseases they got. You'd be having the misery that they got. You'd be having all the trouble. So it's not watching after people that are high up in government or in colleges. I don't care where they're coming from. The greatest thing that Yisrayl Hawkins did was he turned his back on those that were trying to get him to sway, to change his mind, and they threatened him. They put him in jail. This man has given everything in him to do that which is right for you and I. For you and I. That's what he's doing it for. That's what he's doing it for. So what are you and I to do? We're to give everything we can for others. And let's start with our children. And just even, like I said, okay, you're a young man, you're not married yet, you're a man, a single man, you don't have any children, and you can't talk to the children, but you sure can set a righteous example. I don't want them to hear a bad word. I don't want to have them see a negative attitude that's just not righteous, that someone's doing wrong. I don't want to see that. I don't want to hear that. I want to know that they're in an environment from those that truly are studying and understanding Yahweh's word, that everything will be done as perfect as we can. Well, I wasn't able to get to some of these things, brethren, but I just really wanted to. Right here in this book, it's telling us things that are just so awesome. So I don't have a full amount of time to get everything down, but I do want to tell you this on page number 7, Proverbs 1:2, for attaining education and wisdom and moral discipline to comprehend words of understanding. And that's what discipline is. And we need to discipline our children. Discipline means setting things after a certain order, teaching that order, and ensuring it's maintained. Mother and father, brother, sister, how can we be sure unless we're reading this book, unless we're studying this? We don't know what it says. We've got to read it, study it, and understand it, and then pass it on to the younger ones. Then pass it on to those. Then be the teachers for those. Okay? Then here we are on page number 8, Corinthians 14:40. Let all things be done decently and in order. Everything. How do you know it's being decently in order? What does this book tell us we've got to do? What order? What are they calling decently? How is that done? This book tells you. It goes into detail. And you got a question? Hey, we can get a hold of Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins. We can find out something. Did something come up in here that you're not sure of or you don't understand? Come on, come for counseling. Don't just go over it. Don't bypass it. Okay, and then it says here, helping children to follow instructions in a timely manner. Ecclesiastes 3:1. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. A time for every purpose under heaven. Every purpose. That means that we have got to know what to do and when to do it. To everything there is a season and a time under heaven. Okay? Many times without realizing it, adults teach children that instructions must be followed only after they've said it 5 times or after they've counted up to the number 20. Once this damage is allowed, following a simple instruction can be prolonged into long, weary hours for both adult and child. This will allow your child to start disregarding the voice of authority, and he or she may even begin to laugh at the instruction of authority. By then, the situation has gotten way out of hand and must not continue. You need to get them trained from the time they're real little till you tell them one time. If you have to repeat it, okay, maybe they didn't hear you, there was a noise or whatever. After 2, hey, that's it. Why aren't they doing it? What's the matter? You can't allow it. It's telling you right in here that we can't allow it. 1 Corinthians 14:40 goes into great detail in this. Okay, instructions must be followed immediately. And you and I, 24-hour manual for all children, you and I, we're children. We've got to follow this. But everything that I see in this book is just more and more, here on page number 9, about prayer. Holy garments, times for prayer, dressing Father Yahweh, correct posture, communicating to Father Yahweh. And then it says down here, prevent the children from falling into the trap of practicing mindless repetitions without even thinking of who they are going before and what they must say to Him. Every detail that you can think about, Mom and Dad, that the children need, it's in here. You should love this book. I'm telling you, you should love it. You should really do all that you can to get it and practice it, practice with it. Okay, page 11, 1 Corinthians 14:40, again about let all things be done decently in order. What is this going into? Right there in your own home? The room, the closet, the drawers, the floor, the bookshelf, the bathroom, the kitchen. And then it has all of those. I got them in here. I'll tell you, we use this a lot with the children, so we even did this. We laminated these, got them in plastic so the children can handle them and they're not going to get all messed up. But everything is in here. They could be hung up in their room or they could be passed around, reminding them how to conduct themselves. How awesome can it be? This is just incredible. It's great. And your children, if you're not practicing it, they're being denied from a great help that will help them to grow up spiritually stronger. And that's what we are truly needing, spiritually stronger. Praise Yahweh. Okay, well, I have some more time, so praise Yahweh for that. I hope you're not getting tired of me, but praise Yahweh. We just do what we've got to do. This is the house of Yahweh. Whatever it takes, that's what we're going to do to make it work. Okay, praise Yahweh. And brethren, because you see in the scriptures, people gave their lives for their brothers and sisters. We should be in that mode, in that mood, in that attitude. Let's give it for our children. Let's give our time. That's part of your life. Time, life is time. It's the time you're allowed to live. Are we helping the children all that we can? Okay, so on page 15 it says teaching tools. Teachers and parents must ensure that the teaching tools and materials used to teach children must totally promote the teachings of the house of Yahweh. Everything that we use needs to teach them. And I want to tell you right now, when I get down to the bottom of this, I'm going to tell you something that I'm glad I got the time to go over it with you. If worldly literature, worldly music, and worldly design teaching tools and games are to be used to alert children to evil, then those should first be examined by the Board of Inspecting Kahans and Kahanas. If you're going to show them, let them listen to music, you have it inspected by us Kahans and Kahanas first, and we'll approve whether that's righteous or not. Be sure to promptly stop all worldly nursery rhymes, stories, songs, etc. And I'm sorry, but get rid of the worldly music. Just get rid of it. Get rid of it. And I know I've got 9 children and 17 grandchildren, and I'm very blessed. I've got 5 here in the house of Yahweh, and the other 12 are out there doing the crazy worldly things. And I want these 5 to really come to perfection, that they can help their other grandchildren, my other grandchildren, and my children. We've got to help these children know that this is the best place to be. We've got to make them feel comfortable with this and showing them the evil in the world, and that will really do it. That's why I read those things. Look at the evil that's going on around us in this crazy world. It's horrible. It's really, really horrible. And unless you and I really try hard to get the minds of our children, a child's mind is like a sponge, Mom and Dad. Whatever you allow to go into it at a young age, it just saturates, gets filled up. That television set, they can tell you, all kinds of things about what's on television. Well, what about chapter, 2 of Genesis? What's in? I don't know. That's the wrong way. They should be able to tell you all about the scriptures and say, what program? What's on the? I took my television out of my. I don't want it. If I got a disc or something from the house of Yahweh, I'll go dig it out and put it in there. Otherwise, you can keep that thing. Even the news, it's depressing. We know the right way to live, and yet we got to see murders and violence, and we got to see the crazy news reporters putting the House of Yahweh down that they don't even understand and know. They don't know anything about this truth, and yet they criticize and comment about us and against us. So these things are all, let me see if I can find here. Below is a list of constructive alternatives you can employ children at so their minds can get a break from one activity to another, constructive, beneficial one. And they go through a whole series of things that we can do with them to keep their minds occupied on what they should be doing, on the truth. So let them catch up on some home chore or some extra work that needs to be done in the home. You can also allow them to begin their chores earlier than the usual time and be done earlier. And don't forget, they're doing chores and all, compliment them about the great job that they're doing. Make sure that you show them. It says, get them to make a scripture book where they make a decorative page with special scriptures for each day. Flashcards could also be made. A lot of these suggestions are great. There are things that we can be doing with them. So, like I'm telling you, this book has everything. And here in page number 18, it says Philippians 1:3-6. It says, I thank Yahweh at every remembrance of you. Verse 4, always in every prayer of mine and on behalf of every one of you with joy for you all, for your participation in the message from the first day until now. Verse 6, being confident of this very thing, that he who has begun a righteous work in you, brethren, and you and me, he's begun a righteous work, following Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins, the most righteous man that could be teaching us, and we are learning this righteousness and this righteous work. We're learning to do it. So work in us will continue to bring us to perfection until the day of Yahshua Messiah. And we can't wait for that time with Yahshua Messiah, brethren. It's going to be so awesome. So this sick, disgusting, terrible world that we're living in now is just so messed up, so nasty that there's nothing that we can do about it out there. We can't change the world right now, except Pastor is going around the whole world with this message. And so what you and I are learning is being presented to the world. They're rejecting it now, but when it finally clicks and they see that this is the truth, the only truth in the whole entire world, they are going to come here. They're going to want to come here. And you and I, brethren, are we ready? Are we really ready for those people to come here so that we're going to teach them? Well, the thing is, I'll tell you right off the bat, grab this. Okay, you people, for 24 hours a day, this is what we do. And like I say, just because some of your children, they're not all, they can't be in a 24-hour school. We could, but we can't. And so they come home. When they come home, you still have that time with those children. No, don't go out and play. Okay, you'll be upset with me, but here's Kahana's kid. Give them a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but get time in on this. Don't sit there cooking for hours. You got to stay outside and make this great, big, fantastic meal. That might be wonderful, but the spiritual food way outweighs the physical food that we're going to be serving them. So praise Yahweh. Praise Yahweh for that, I'll tell you. Let me see if I can grab this one out of the... I had one in here. Oh, yeah. And on page number 6 of this new prophetic word, it's telling us about 1 Yochanan 3, 4, 7, 8, and 10. And it says in verse 4, whoever commits sin transgresses also the laws, for sin is the transgression of the laws. We know that. Sin is a transgression of the laws. What are we teaching our children about not sinning? Number 7, line 7, little children. That includes you and me, mom and dad, everybody, little children. Let no man deceive you. He who practices righteousness is righteous. And that's what I was going over before. Just as he is righteous, as Yahshua Messiah is righteous, Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins, taking that lead and that role in this day and age, showing us, teaching us, and guiding us into righteousness, that we may be with him in the kingdom for all eternity. And line 8 says, he who commits sin is of the devil, for the devil has sinned from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of Yahweh was manifested. The Son of Yahweh was manifested because he who commits sin is of the devil. And it's all to put down Satan's works. And she's got this world, Revelation 12:9. She's confused the whole world. And she's deceived it. And you and I, it's our job to dig our way through that evil out there and to come here and learn the truth and then apply it in our lives. Well, brethren, if everybody will please stand. It is now the greatest honor and privilege that I can have to present the greatest man on the face of this earth teaching us, the great Kahan, Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins.
Praise Yahweh. You may be seated. You may be seated. You may be seated. Oh, we got a mic. We got a mic. Praise Yahweh. Technical difficulties is what they call it this morning. Computers. Nobody understands a computer. You could work on that thing for 100 years and still couldn't understand it. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. We were supposed to have some films that goes with this lesson. First off, I want you to turn over to Luke because this time of years, this time of the year, Satan has the greatest pull on people. And it was set up for deception. And people are still falling for it. But it's there. Yahweh allowed it to be there for your test. You know, when Yahweh called you, now get this, boys. Listen to me closely. When Yahweh called you to His work, it's because He has a job for you. That job is found in Luke 9, verse 60. Read it for yourself. That's why He called you here. The things you're learning here, you're going to change the world with it. Yes, Yahweh says there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. You know who's going to make that new heaven and new earth? That's the reason you're being called. The sickness and disease and fightings and wars that's going on all over the world right now is going to change due to your efforts, due to what you're learning here at Yahweh's house. He called you here to train you to build a kingdom of priests. And it won't stop here. Your offspring, your seed, your offspring, throughout all eternity is going to be a part of rebuilding the universe. And you can throw it all away in one day. Or with a stupid phone call by saying, "Oh yes, Mother, I'll be there. Oh yes, Father, I'll be there." What you should do is tell them, hang on to them damnable holidays and go to hell with them if you want to, but I don't want any part of it. It's these holidays that pull people into the big financial situations that is costing millions of lives right now. Causing wars, going on all over the world. Turn a television on and look at the news, the world news, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It starts with Halloween. Yes, that's the start of it. And now it's the biggest holiday of the world. You know why they call it that? Because people spend more money on Halloween now than they do on any of the other pagan holidays. Christmas and Easter and all of them put together. Halloween. I lost a family because of that. They wouldn't give up Halloween. They love trick-or-treating. Well, can't we just go this last one night? No, cut it off. Stop it. Yeshua is dealing with the same thing back then, but this is written for you if you'll turn to Luke 9 and read it for yourself. Luke. It's right after Matthew, Mark, then you have Luke. Found on page 794. Luke 9. Yeshua said to him, "Let the dead bury the dead." Yes, they are dead. They're dying daily because they're breaking Yahweh's laws. They keep breaking the laws that Yahweh told them. You do this, and dying you will die. This is what's going on in the world today, all around you. That's the reason all sickness and disease is picking up. It's magnifying all over the world. We had news articles to show you this, how it's actually picking up, it's actually multiplying. The diseases are multiplying by leaps and bounds now, all over the world. And they're saying we have no cure. We have nothing that will stop this. So he says, let the dead bury their dead. You come and preach the kingdom of Yahweh. Well, of course, I'm looking at you right now. You don't look like there's any hope left, for you. But if you let Yahweh work with you, if you listen to what I say, start trying to study these things, get them in your mind, you'll see Yahweh is training you. And with Yahweh, all things are possible. He could take a rock, as Yahshua said, or a rock head. That's what we have here, a bunch of rock heads. Yes, I'm one of them. And now he calls us donkeys because we're doing the work. Right? But he can make the greatest teachers of you. The world will never see anything like it, From their education, it's nothing to compare to what Yahweh is putting in your minds right now. He says, go and preach the kingdom of Yahweh. Well, that's what you're doing. Any part you have in this work right here, it's a part that's actually pushing the teaching of the kingdom of Yahweh. Look at the next verse. And another also said, Teacher, I'll follow you, but first let me go bid farewell to my family. After all, this is my mother. It's not somebody else's mother. My mother's important. But this is my child. My child's really important. Oh, I know the rest of them don't amount to anything. Let them go out to war and get killed. But my child? No, let me go bid farewell to my child. What did Yahshua say to you in that cave? Who is my mother and father? Who is my family? When he called you here, I welcome you home because this is your family. You become a part of this family of Yahweh. And Yahshua says to the family, go and preach the kingdom of Yahweh. Be a part of it. Well, is that cleaning commodes? Yes. I told you how I rejoiced because I was given the job of cleaning commodes. I had a part in Yahweh's work. Any part. It don't make any difference. I'd scrub the floors. I'd be a floor mat. I don't care. Any part would be worth getting into that kingdom and being a part of it. I'll clean your commodes throughout all eternity if Yahweh tells me that's my job. And I'll praise Yahweh for it. And he said, Yahshua said to him, no man who puts his hand to the plow. What is the plow? Cleaning commodes with a toothbrush, with whatever it is now. I used a cotton mop, a stick with a cotton mop on the end of it, and some Lysol. Before that, we used lye itself. Then it starts looking back. Notice it, read it for yourself, because these words are for you. Well, that's all I'm going to bring of that sermon right now. I want to get into, if you fit that bill, then go ahead and go die with your parents. Go to your family. Go celebrate whatever it is, trick-or-treating, or it's all worshiping the dead. It's not trick-or-treating. You're worshiping the dead. Dead rabbis who now they call gods. That's what you're doing. They're in opposition, Yahweh says, against Him. Have nothing to do with them, He says. This is throughout the Holy Scriptures. Don't have anything to do with these gods. Come to Yahweh's house, gear up to learn everything in His house. You can't read fast enough to read what I'm writing now. You can't study it that fast. But you could double your efforts in trying, and that will weigh to your benefit in the kingdom. What I want you to do now is turn to Revelations 21. Revelations 21. Now, here we have in verse 1, he said, "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no sea." I want you to understand all of this, so let's go, we'll come back here to this spot, but let's turn over to turn back here. He's already told you this, but people forget when he tells you something, and then he goes on to another subject, and then you forget what he told you there. And this is a big mistake because it's here a little and there a little, and you have to put it all together, of course, and then there you have a beautiful plan of Yahweh. But if you'll look over to Revelations now, back to Revelation 17, and remember he said in chapter 21, no more sea. Well, what's he speaking of here? No more sea. Well, I could interpret that. Everybody has an interpretation, or two, or three, or four. That's the reason they get so mixed up on all scriptures, and then they go out wanting to butcher a lamb that was already butchered, and set up, and they don't know the difference between a memorial and an actual sacrifice or butchering. They don't know how to butcher to begin with. They don't know how to select a lamb. They're that stupid. And this is a stupidity we see in the world, and that's the reason they don't understand the Scripture. And it takes years and years of Yahweh working with you to teach this. It goes faster when you have a teacher, who expounds it. Praise Yahweh. And from this point, Yahweh says, the righteous teachers will never be taken away again. Praise Yahweh. And Daniel said they'll shine as the stars of heaven. Now he's talking about the glory that Yeshua said, Yahweh gave this gift to me. He turned over this authority to me so that you may honor the Son of Man. The sons of men, honor them. Yes, honor. Great honor should go to the priest of Yahweh. Great honor, if you'll read Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, should go to your wives and should go to your children. If you'll just wake up and pay attention to what He wants coming from you. He doesn't want dishonor. You can burn in hell with dishonor. He wants honor coming from you to one another. Praise them, bring them up, build them up. Give a dog a good name, as the old saying goes, and make him live up to it. That fits, that was made for dogs? No, for humans. That saying was for human. I'm one of those dogs. I am. I used to be. I'm trying to live up to the name that Yahweh gave me. And that's what you've got to do. Well, to see, you don't interpret the Scriptures. It says it's not for private interpretation. So what do? You find the answer to it. Yahweh gave you the answer, but He gave it somewhere else. Here a little and there a little. Why did He do that? So they would go and fall backwards and stumble. Well, why did He want to do that? Because now is not the day of salvation, He said. So He calls those He wants. He calls those, giving certain ones that He planned in advance, like He did Yeshua. He did the same thing for you. before the world was, He knew you. Now, you think of what a magnificent mind that He put together in the human body. He put the human body together and could actually predict thousands of years in advance that there's a certain person there named John or Joe or Pete or whatever that's going to be called to His house. Well, He had to plan to have a house too, and all of that was planned in advance before the world was. That's the mind you're going to have. In fact, you have it now. He just hasn't turned it over to you, the subconscious mind, but that's what it's capable of. I used to sit and I was wanting to learn. What I wanted was to turn books into liquid, unscrew the top of my head and pour it in. But it don't work that way. But you can, you can turn the page that fast. Don't even look down at it. And your subconscious mind knows every word on that page. Double pages. You can actually do this with a newspaper this wide. Your eyes pick that up whether you know it or not. The side vision can see that. It brings it right into your subconscious mind that never forgets. It's there for eternity. The one thing that the subconscious mind it will also do, on command, it will forget when you get the use of it. And there's a lot of things that I want to forget. But here now in Revelation 17, remember, no more sea. Well, what is the sea? If you look over to Revelation 17, verse 1, and there came one of the 7 Malachim who had the 7 bowls and talked with me, saying to me, come and I will show you the sentence of the great whore which sits on many waters. Do you get that? Now sea, remember the word sea. Here it's called water, sets on many waters. If you look at 17, chapter 17 and verse, let's see, is it 15? 15, and he said to me, the waters which you saw where the whore sits are multitudes, nations, and languages. Now what he's saying here, it's called sea here. It's called sea in 13, chapter 13. Look at chapter 13 and look at verse 1. The same word here. And I stood upon the sands of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea. Well, here we see in Revelation 17:15, if you remember the words waters, you know that this is peoples, multitudes, nations, and notice he says languages. Languages. If you look back to Genesis, you ought to have all this in your mind, and you do, your subconscious mind, but you should be to the point to where you can remember these things so you won't be in question about them again. This will help to keep down on unbelief and deception. In Genesis, the 11th chapter, in Genesis 11, if you look at verse 7, he says, come now, I will go down there, and there I will confuse the language. Confuse the language. So if you put that together with Revelation 17 and verse 15, am I going too fast? Revelation 17 and verse 15, you'll see why we have languages. And the sea that this beast rose up in was multitudes, nations, and languages. Well, notice what he did here. So, and Yahweh in verse 7, come, I will go down, and there I will confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So Yahweh scattered them abroad from there over the face of the earth, and they ceased building this tower at that time. Verse 9 says, therefore its name is called Babel. Now here is the beginning, or the word here that you see throughout the Holy Scriptures, Babel or Babylon, meaning confusion. Be sure and remember that, or you won't understand. Are you listening to me? Be sure and remember that, or you won't understand later when Yahweh says they led them away to Babylon. Or Babylon came and got this group of people, including Daniel, and took him to Babylon. If you don't understand that, then you won't understand that this was Israel fighting Israel throughout the Holy Scriptures. And they took over the nations, and they kept fighting among each other, causing wars. And from that rose up 4 world-ruling kingdoms, the last still being in operation, but not ruling the world. 4 beasts. And this beast, then, that we see in Revelation is referring to those 4 beasts that became one unit in the great city called the Vatican that sits on 7 hills. Well, here he says, therefore, its name is called Babel, meaning confusion. Now remember this, what it means, because you're going to be seeing it throughout the Holy Scriptures in your study. And this way you'll know what it is. It was started by Cush. That's chapter 10. Chapter 10, it was started there, what led this great confusion that we see in Revelation 17. So Babel became, therefore, verse 9, therefore its name is called Babel, because there Yahweh confounded the language of all the earth. These are the begettings then of Shem. Notice that, and let's, if you follow it on down to verse 26, you will see, now Terah lived 70 years and begot Abraham the Hebrew. Well, why did they call him the Hebrew? You remember all of that? You remember, I said, why did they call him Hebrew? Because he followed the language of Yahweh. The language Yahweh gave, that was Hebrew. That was Hebrew. Now the rest of the languages that came after that were not Hebrew. Yahweh confused their language. He gave them other languages. And that's what kept them separate, because they couldn't understand one another. Someone came to me back at the feast, and they said, you know, I think I've got started on the wrong foot. She said, I came to where I was told to go to find a job and go to work to help during the feast. And she said I was told to talk to the supervisor. Well, I guess the supervisor was busy, so she kind of, like that. And this hurt the person's feeling. I said, oh, no, don't let that hurt your feelings. You know, that's sign language that's used around here. And what they mean is, find the job that you like most to do, and you go do it. Well, later on in the feast, I saw the person again. I said, how's things going? Oh, wonderful. You know, I've learned a lot of this sign language. But she said, and I said, you got you a job? Yeah, oh yeah, and I'm really enjoying it. I said, what are you doing? Well, I looked over the whole place, and I found these ice cream machines. And she said, what I like best is ice cream. So I got me a big bowl of ice cream. I went to the dining room, and I started eating it. And I said, and? Well, the supervisor came down. She was well pleased. She said, and she turned and left. I said, well, hang in there. Well, here Abraham now. We see Abraham born. We see Abraham born. And if you go over to let's see, verse 27 says, and these are the begettings then of Terah. Terah begot Abraham, Nahor, and so forth. And this was in 2161. We'll go into these dates later. I don't want to do it now because it gives you the generations, the number of generations, 14. Let's get that in your mind right there of Abraham being born now, the Hebrew being born. And he spoke Hebrew. And in the Hebrew language, of course, the scriptures were written without vowel points. Let's go to Matthew 1. Without vowel points. And of course, this is what his last house is getting back to in the scriptures that Yahweh gave us, the Hebrew without vowel points. And here in Matthew now, remember what you saw there, and it gives you the begettings starting with Shem and going to Abraham. Abraham the Hebrew, showing that he was still speaking the Hebrew language. The rest of the people were confounded or given another language to speak. Well, here in Matthew 1 and verse 1, the record of the begettings of Yeshua Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. If you can read this later, but if you'll go on down to verse 17, 16, Jacob begot Joseph, the husband of Miriam, of whom was born Yeshua, who is called Messiah. So all the begettings from Abraham to David are 14 generations, from David until the captivity of, what do you see there? Have you got the scripture yet? Matthew 1, verse 17. You see that word Babylon. So start over. So all the begettings from Abraham to David are 14 generations. From David until the captivity of Babylon. Now, I've told you how Babylon started. Babylon was taken over, of course, by the 12 tribes. They built a huge army there. They also built the same army, took over the 7 hills of Rome. They had an army there. They would take captive. If you remember, Daniel was part of that captivity. They took him. He was a smart young man, and they wanted him in their squadron, and him and some others, and they placed them. This is the way they did it. They placed them in their schools and taught them their language and taught them their religion, or told them they could have any religion they wanted to. Of course, they changed their mind there later when people got to following the laws of Yahweh from their teachings. But if you would convert to their religions, then you could become a Pharisee and had the status of a Roman, as they called it. And you had lots of privileges when you had that. You were in the Roman Senate. You could go to the Roman government. You could wherever they decided they needed you, that's where they would put you. And in this way, this beast was built. The 4 beasts of Daniel, which they didn't kill one another, they joined one another. Whoever won the battle, the others joined them. And they took the best of the army, the best of the fighting techniques, They took the best of everything from those people. They didn't have computers, so they took the best of the people, they learned whatever they knew, and they used that to build their country, this beastly system that we see today in the world that is made up of 4 beasts and 11 religions. Or 14, notice 14 generations to the captivity of Babylon, where they started this training program, of which Daniel shows that he was a part of it, and they took him and said, "We want you in our crew." Well, that's what they did with everyone. That shows you the pattern of this beastly system that they were building. That's what we see in Rome today. That's the ruler of the kings of the earth. Got that? This is the beast that rose up where there's multitudes, nations, and languages. Got it? Right here. And he shows it in the days, in the generations of Yeshua. Don't let this slip from your mind. It's very important. The captivity of Babylon until Messiah are also 14 generations. 14 generations to Yeshua. Now, of course, when Yeshua died, the house of Yahweh destroyed. The house of Yahweh destroyed. And then those who following Yeshua, due to the gossip of Noah, due to this gossip, they were hunted and killed, but they never did kill them all. They kept going and going and going, and generation after generation. Then you go back now with this in your mind, with this information in your mind, and you go back to Revelations 13. Revelations 13. And he says here, remember the word Babylon and the languages. And I stood upon the sands of the sea, and I saw the beast rise up out of the sea. Well, now we know the sea is waters, having 7 heads. 7 heads, that's what Daniel showed. And then 10 horns, that's what Daniel showed. And crowns upon their head, that is authority given unto them. And the beast which I saw was similar to the leopard, and his feet like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. It was the dragon, Satan the devil, who put this machine together. Now, it's this same machine that, of course, Daniel said was going to be given extra knowledge in this time period. Extra knowledge, which we know this came from the computer. Yahweh is the one that opened this door, and he had it set. Remember Yochanan 1:1. Nothing occurs that Yahweh doesn't permit. It can't. It's his plan. And you, brethren, have a part of training in the greatest kingdom ever put together. This is Yahweh's kingdom. It's the greatest ever. And from this kingdom that you're sitting in right now learning, this kingdom is going to rule the universe. That's his promise to you. Praise Yahweh. Now notice he says, and I saw one of the heads as it were wounded unto death, and the deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after this great beast. It's shown to be 1 now, but it was 4 earlier, and from each one of those 4 came knowledge put together, and all of it was war, war, war. And now it's come down to these last days. They're still fighting, still fighting. They just have some weapons that can destroy the whole world. That's why it's going to be remade. That's why we've got to redo it. There's going to be a new heaven and a new earth because we know it's going to be destroyed. Praise Yahweh. And they worship, notice, the dragon. They worship the dragon. How? Halloween. Yes, that's part of the worship of this dragon. She was the one that put this gaiety together for you. Christmas, Halloween, Easter, the 7th chapter of 1 Samuel shows you that. And it was done back in Egypt. And of course it's grown down through the years. And they worshiped the beast. They worshiped this beast. Notice, they gave honor to the beast. Yahweh wants you to give honor to righteousness. That's what He wants. The sons of men, when they do righteousness, you need to give them honor for it. That includes your children and your wife or your husband. Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him? So it's a war machine that they put together, as Deacon Tovia has been bringing out. This beastly system. It's a war machine that is now built into the greatest ever and is capable of destroying the earth. And there was given unto him a mouth, speaking great things, and blasphemy, of course, against Yahweh. Power was given unto him to make war for 42 moons. This is the last part of it, of course. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against Yahweh. He's still doing it. We don't want Yahweh here. That's what we were told in Abelin. We don't want you here, Israel Hawkins. You know, who is Israel Hawkins? I saw hundreds of people saying, I'm Yisrael Hawkins. I was looking here and there it is. They were everywhere. Praise Yahweh. And notice they blasphemed the name, his name, and his house. Everyone on earth is doing that today except the house of Yahweh. They're the ones that's showing honor to Yahweh and building his house, and those who dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority was given unto him over all tribes. Now here's where you get the languages again. Is given to him over all tribes, peoples, languages, and nations. Now that has occurred. What is occurring now is the people trying to get out from under this authority. The petrodollar is one of the things one of the laws that they're breaking, and we've got quite a bit of stuff to show you on this. You really need to know it because it's a tool of Satan that she's going to use to actually bring the last war in her hopes of destroying heaven and earth. Now, she knows she's got a death sentence. She knows she's dying. And like the people who strap on the bombs, where did they get that thought from? That inspiration comes straight from their teacher, as Yeshua said in Yochanan 8:44. Your teacher is Satan the devil, and what she tells you to do, that you're going to do. And that is what the world is doing today. And you belong to whom you obey. Romans 6:16. Whether of disobedience, which leads to death. Yes, no uncertain terms there. Disobedience, Romans 6:16. You certainly need to know that scripture for sure. The saints, and to overcome them, she did, and authority was given. They even took the Holy Scriptures away from the saints. And they passed laws that put a death penalty on owning any of the prophet's writings, upon practicing any of the laws of Yahweh. And brethren, this went on for years and years. But Yahweh said, in the last days, I will establish my house, and it'll teach the Holy Scripture. Which means there had to be a break-in time for this, and the Scriptures had to be printed where the witness could have a copy of it to train with and then to teach later. So all of that was in Yahweh's plan. But first, Notice there first that he would overcome them and authority was given unto him. That's what Daniel said that was going to take place also. Given unto him over all tribes, peoples, and languages. Notice, languages, you got that? And nations. And all who dwell upon the earth will worship him. That's all who dwell upon the earth will worship him. And that went on for years. Whose name was not written from the foundations of the world in the book of life. So you were named or you wouldn't be here. Of the Lamb who was slain. If any man has an ear, let him hear. He who will go into captivity, well, of course, that part has already taken place. Now, here's the second part to this. Here's the place where the United States. Remember the United States? Stay with me. Listen closely. Now here, this was the first beast that you saw here up to this point. Verse 11 shows the United States being established. Now this was a Babylonian land not yet established. Remember that Zechariah spoke of in Zechariah 4 and 5. Where Zechariah said the two witnesses would build a house, the house of Yahweh there. So, here's the land now, the Babylonian land, that was not established then, but became established. Remember, Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1902? Is that what he was? Yes? No? What? When did Columbus sail the ocean blue? Better learn these dates, boys. You need to learn these dates. The land that you're sitting on right now was not established when Yahshua was here on this earth. It was not established when this prophecy here was written, but it was prophesied in advance in Zechariah, the 4th and 5th chapter. To be established. Be established what? By the house of Yahweh? No. No. Babylon. Babylon. Remember the word Babylon. And Zechariah said a Babylonian land not yet established. This was the only place on the face of the earth that was not established. It was the ends of the earth, as another prophet said. The ends of the earth. Oklahoma was the end of the earth, period. It was the last land to be let out to the people, called the Oklahoma Run. Now you got to remember this. You got to remember all these things that I'm bringing to you. Here it is spoken of. And I saw another beast, not this one that we just read about here, that all the world is worshiping, but I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, not the sea. The sea is the multitudes, nations, and languages. The waters that you saw, remember where that was? Revelation 17:15. And I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, another beast. The earth. Well, we know that this is not multitudes, nations, and languages. This is coming up out of the earth where there's no multitudes, nations, and languages. And that's exactly what we found in the United States. And it became established a Babylonian land. The Catholic Church went quickly, building orphanages and churches throughout the land that is now called America. Their governments are all under the control of the Catholic Church. Now read on and you'll see it's prophesied. Look at where it's prophesied, right there. This one had two horns. What do you see ruling the United States but the Catholic and the Protestant? They call it the Protestant. Of course, they don't protest to anything that the Catholics are doing. They're in full agreement with them. They all work together. In fact, the Catholic Church calls the Christianity her daughters. Christianity follows all the laws that they changed, like Sunday, like Easter, like Halloween. So notice what this prophecy prophesied in advance. He said, "And I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns." These are 2 religions, "like a lamb, but he spoke like a dragon." Yes, one of the generals said, "We're the strongest nation on the face of the earth, and you pipsqueaks are going to have to yield to us, to our every demand. We're stronger than you, so we will beat you down if you don't yield to us." So they rule, as Yahshua said. Yahshua also said, "It won't bring peace. Boys, hey boys, it won't bring you peace. It's going to bring you destruction." And that's exactly what we see building in and around the great river Euphrates at this time. Now, verse 12, notice, "And he exercised all the authority of the first beast." You see that? Same ruling power. That's the way they started, and that's the way they still are. Not like Yahshua said the kingdom of Yahweh would be, following the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. That's what we're going to be ruling with. Ruling with the tongue, with guidance, with help. Helping one another, working for one another, serving one another. The first beast before him, and they caused the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast. Now this is the second beast that's pushing this religion, pushing it, forcing it, going out and taking in countries and saying, "We're going to give you democracy." They called that freedom. The apostle said while they promise you freedom, they're giving you death. This is a death sentence they're passing off on you, getting you to go against Yahweh's laws. Sinning, you sin. Dying, you will die. And that's exactly what's taking place. The deadly wound was healed, and he does great wonders, so that he makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. Fire, think of that now. Think of it. When a nuclear bomb is exploded, when the atom bomb was exploded over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, up above, it was exploded above the city. And one bomb destroyed each of those cities. Makes fire come down from heaven to destroy cities, multitudes, nations, and languages. Keep that in mind now. Fire come down from heaven and deceives that. Notice they deceive those who dwell upon the earth by those acts of power which they had authority to do in the sight of the beast, saying to those who dwell upon the earth that they should make a likeness of the beast, be like the first beast, which had the wound by the sword and did live. He had power to give life to the likeness of the beast. That is, this America had power to give life, to bring this about where they would be like the first beast. That the likeness of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the likeness of the beast should be killed. This has been going on. The last one that we know of was not too far from here in Texas. The Davidians, I believe that was their names, and our own government went in and burnt the whole group of them to death. Put to death. You come out preaching the laws of Yahweh. And that's what they did. They didn't have the full truth because they weren't the house of Yahweh. But they were trying to keep what they called the feast of Yahweh. They used the name Yahweh. There was ones up north that was doing it too, and they killed them also, wiped them out. This is still going on. You see that prophecy? How could he possibly know that this two-horned beast of the Catholics and the Protestants would actually, in this land not yet established, as Zechariah said, wasn't even established at the time this prophecy here was written, but he knew that this two-religion system of the United States would be killing people who would not worship this beast. And it's still going on. They tried that. They had it set up for the House of Yahweh. Yes, they were going to hit us the same time they did the Davidians. But Yahweh turned that around. So this beastly system caused this to be set up that anyone who would not worship this under Christianity or Catholicism would be killed. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond. Well, you know about the mark of the beast. If you don't, you really need to get the book. You need to get it anyway. There's more information in those first two books, brethren, than you can ever imagine. Verse 17, and that no man might buy or sell unless he had the mark or the number of his name. Well, right now what's going on in Europe, if you can see what's taking place, the United States is sanctioning those who won't worship the beast, who won't yield to the petrodollar, and they're shutting their trade off, their economy off from them, and they're putting them out of business. They're causing, as these prophecies right here show, they're causing this. They cause all the world. That's their job that Satan has given them. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding count the number of this beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666, as is given in the book called the Mark of the Beast. We're in Revelations 13. Revelations 13. They will bring destruction. If you look back to chapter 9 here, and you'll see what's going on in Europe around the great river Euphrates, chapter 9, verse 14. It shows you the place where the destruction is going to start and kill 1/3 of man over that fourth part of the earth. And then verse 20. Look at verse 20. And the rest of the men who were not killed by these plagues still did not repent of the works of their hands. The plagues, if you see there in verse 17, is the three colors that make up the nuclear bomb that is put together with the world's latest increase in knowledge called the computer, and explodes, bringing down fire from heaven. The great beast, the United States, invented this with the increase in knowledge that Yahweh gave them. But after this, he says in verse 20, the rest of the men who were not killed by these plagues still did not repent of the works of their hands, that they should not worship demons, follow demons. Yes, that's what you get when you go to a grave and pray. There's no live people in there. If there was, they'd be trying to claw their way out. But there's plenty of demons around, and if a demon sees something like this going on and wants to use that person, they got their minds and hearts open, saying, enter my body. Come on, Lord, enter my body. Worship demons and gods of gold, of silver, brass, and stone, of wood, which cannot see, nor hear, nor walk. Neither did they repent of their murders, nor of their pharmaceuticals. That word sorcery there. How did meningitis ever get in that plant of steroids? You know, that would have been the first question I would have asked. Why was it there? Why was it even there around those steroids? And nobody has asked that question. Why? Have you seen it on the news? And now they got something else in the steroids. And it's killing people. Well, they're not going to repent of this. Do you hear any of them repenting? No, they got lawyers coming in now to mop up and get big money spread around. Put them out of business. Of course, they'll open up again just down the streets, you know, with a new name in a few days, because there's big money in it. Sorceries. That means pharmaceuticals. If you want to look up the word, it's 5331 from 5332, meaning medication, pharmacy, sorcery, and witchcraft. We're in, let's see, chapter, we're in where? 9, chapter 9. Now, if you turn back over with that in mind now to chapter 17. Chapter 17. Chapter 17. Now, you got to remember also with this, in chapter 6, Yeshua is the one that opens the seals. Yochanan recorded it for us, and that recording had to get in the hands of the witness so Yeshua could open the seals for the witness to preach this message. And here was the laws that the beastly system passed, that you couldn't own a Bible. And this went on for years. Thousands, millions, some people say billions of people lost their lives because of this hatred for the laws of Yahweh. History shows this. I'm not lying, you know. It's there for anyone to read, and we're putting many copies in the letters and in the Prophetic Word magazine, and of course in the sermons. But now we get back to the sentence of this great whore, or this beastly system that rose up. Here now in 17 and verse 1 he said, "And there came one of the 7 Malachim who had the 7 bowls, and talked with me, saying," well, of course he's saying, "Come to the house of Yahweh, and we will teach you the sentence. We'll show you the sentence of the great whore." This is somebody teaching this. One of the 7. And if you remember in chapter 10, when the 7th one speaks, and he's the only one left at this time, he's the end. He brings this sentence. He shows this sentence for what this great whore is doing, the religion. Praise Yahweh. He says, come, we're inviting you to come, and I will show you the sentence of this great whore that sets upon many waters. Waters, the sea, rose up out of the sea, and she sets on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, practiced adultery, and all kinds of wickedness, and the inhabitants of the earth have been drunk. This word means confusion now, as you saw back, remember this, you saw back in Genesis. The creation of Babylon, confusion. So the inhabitants of the whole earth has been made drunk with this teaching, started back. Cush was the father. He's the one that fathered this school of higher learning and brought this practice of money-making, God worship to all the world. And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine. That's the teaching of her fornication. And look at verse 18 now. Verse 18, "The woman whom you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth." The woman whom you saw is that great whore. The great whore that is described here is the whore that leads the world astray, that rose up, the great beast rose up, and in the many waters, as verse 15, chapter 17, verse 15 says, "And he said to me, the waters which you saw, where the whore sits, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages." Nations and languages. Now, in verse 8, chapter 18, the first 8 verses of this chapter shows, "And he's saying to you, come out of her, my people." What does he mean by that? He means get out of that family if it's worshiping gods. Get to the house of Yahweh. Get away from them. Come out from among them and be ye separate, Yahweh said. Touch not the unclean thing. There's no way you can go around unclean people and not touch the unclean thing. Get out from among them. Be separate. Don't worship their God. Halloween, next week, I think, isn't it? Or some very close now. The biggest paying holiday of the year now. And it has a tremendous draw. Let's go out there and get some free candy from those people. And dying, you will die. And throwing away your salvation, yes, you're throwing it away. And he cried mightily, that's verse 2, chapter 18, Revelations, cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon is fallen, is fallen. I think you've heard me say that a few times, because it's filled with all of demon worship, all of sin of every kind. Look on down to verse 8. Verse 8. Therefore her plagues will come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she will be utterly burned. Yes, the same thing that she created to try to destroy the earth and educate these people and make money. You know, that was what Bawa Jain, if you remember, he's the one that opened the door to get us in the UN to bring the message before many, many people. And he told me, he said that there's no way you're going to stop this. And I said, I am going to stop it. And he said, there's no way that you're ever going to stop this. He said, and he told me this was like a $7 billion business a year. Well, now it's getting up into the $1 trillion budget. But this is going to be burned with fire, for strong is Father Yahweh who judges her. Now, look back to where we started. It's going to be destroyed, but not completely. Well, how do we know that? Because Yahweh tells us by the prophets. But look at verse 1 first. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no more multitudes, nations, and languages. No more different languages. What separated them to begin with? Dividing the language. This is what he's saying here. There's no more division of languages. And there won't be a multitude of different religions throughout the earth. Everyone is going to worship Yahweh. You're going to see to that. Praise Yahweh. And verse 7, he who overcomes will inherit all things, and I will be his father, and he will be my sons and daughters. But you will see no more of this. Once this is done, yes, we're going to rebuild the earth. We're not going to destroy it. Look over. I'm not through yet. Look back to Isaiah. Look back to Isaiah. I've got to show you this to go with this, to go with what we've just learned. Isaiah 58. Isaiah 58. Everybody get this and read it now. Remember, there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth are passed away. That is, they're destroyed. There will be a few left. About 2 billion people, Yahweh shows, on earth when he finally stops it. In look at verse 12, 58 verse 12. And those of you, brethren, he's speaking of you. You're the last one. You're the remnant. You're the one that's going to receive the power to raise the dead. It's all promised to you if you will go worship Halloween, go worship that God, go worship Christmas. Is that what he says? That's what the Christians and the Catholics are saying. We're the only ones that are saying, go worship Yahweh. And those of you will rebuild the waste places. That's speaking of the earth. That's speaking of the heavens. Yes, you're going to rebuild them, Yahweh said. You're going to make them new. And you're going to make them the way Yahweh originally made them. You will raise up the foundations of many generations, and you will be called the repairer of the breach the restorer of the streets to dwell in. Where does this start? Where does it start? Look right there, the next verse. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? You're training for it right there. That's where it shows. Right there. And then verse 59, you're bringing them out of this world, out of this beastly system. Chapter 59, verses 1 and 2, you're bringing them out of all of this right here. In verse 21 of Isaiah 59, he says, as for me, this is my covenant with them. Well, he's talking about those. Go back up to 15, verse 15. Yes, truth, the law is suppressed, and he who departs from evil is counted as mad. Yahweh saw this, and it displeased him. And then verse 19 said, so they will reverence me from the west. From the west, did you get that? The west. He came, the Moloch, the messenger, came from the east, going west. In fact, he went straight to the homestead, the homestead, and the work was dedicated to Yahweh. And in the west, Yahweh's name is given honor. And the sons of men are given honor as Yeshua said it must be. Praise Yahweh. So they will reverence me, my name, from the west. Now verse 21, as for me, this is my covenant with them, speaking of you, says Yahweh, my spirit, which is upon you. That you there is found in, of course, Isaiah 44, where it's talking about two brothers who are witnesses. Isaiah 44, two brothers, and he says, as I pour water upon the dry ground, I'm going to pour my spirit on you. And this you, the spirit here, comes from the witness Yahweh gave to the witness. And he says, as for me, this is my covenant with them. That's speaking of you, says Yahweh. My spirit, which is upon you, the last day's witness, namely my laws, which I have put in your mouth, they will not depart from your mouth. No, I'm going to teach them forever, throughout all eternity. And you too, nor from the mouth of your seed, nor from the mouth of your seed. Your children, your grandchildren, it will keep going, says Yahweh, from this time and forevermore. It's not going to stop. Praise Yahweh, you're doing great. If you'll just keep it up, he who endures until the end, the same Yahweh says, and he who overcomes. Don't keep one foot in the world and the other foot in Yahweh's house. You'll be found and taken out. May Yahweh bless you, and I'll turn the services back to the next leader. I love you!